Hi, this is Erik Larson, and you're listening to the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.
Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 127 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. My name's Rick Verbanis. I am your host for this episode, and I am joined by the best gosh darn co-host out there. That is Mr. Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob, tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
You're crossing the streams, Rick.
I am.
You are definitely crossing the streams.
Yeah, a little DC action there, huh?
Yeah, but I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay, Bob, tell me why my hello to you this time was a quote from what?
Well, was it Batman?
I'm Batman.
Yeah, so clearly it must have something to do with the year that this comic book came out,
which is
1989.
It is.
Right.
Batman was the number one grossing movie of 1989. And yes, that is the time frame we are covering today of our Captain America issue that we are covering, which is not in Captain America. We are branching out, Bob. We're going into a completely different series of The Amazing Spider-Man.
I didn't even know this was allowed. So,
well,
but here we are.
I called in. I got permission.
Yeah.
I got. Yeah, we were allowed to do this.
Went up to the front office.
Yeah. Talk about crossing streams. Yeah. And we're doing all kinds of throwing things out. You are listening to the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.
I wondered though. I mean, if it also, I knew the movie came out in 1989, but man, I don't know if you've been watching that new trailer for Flash.
I know. Is that cool or what?
I don't normally get all that excited. No, I love all superhero movies, but I mean, it doesn't really amp me up, but that one really amped me up.
Oh yeah. I otherwise, I don't know how much interest I'd have in watching a Flash movie.
Right.
Let alone this version of Flash. But the fact that they're going into like the time stream and going into like multiple universes, and I'm sure there are a whole bunch of surprises out there of cameos and things like that, which is why I'm going to have to like go out and see that movie right away.
Yep.
Because I don't want to have any surprise or anything like that. But if we're not ruining anything, because it certainly is mentioned in the cameo, and you get, Flash looking up and, and Michael Keaton does his famous line.
He does it.
And he adds a little to it. I think he goes, "Yeah, I'm Batman." and then you hear the music, the Danny Elfman music from the soundtrack, right? As he's diving down. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw a meme in in one of the comic book groups that I'm on Facebook, and it was Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, right? He's like, the blue guy, the bald blue guy, mostly naked guy.
Yeah.
And he lives in different times at the same time. And then in Watchmen, I'm sure you read Watchmen, right?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
And me too. And there's a part where he talks about how he's in, it's this year, blah, 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 blah. And and the meme is it looks like a panel from the Watchmen of Dr. Manhattan. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says something like 1989. I'm in the theater. Michael Keaton is Batman. Harrison Ford reprises his role as Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's 2023.
Yeah, right. It's crazy if you think about it, right? I mean, I saw that too. I went to see Quantumania, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit late getting to it, but I saw the previews for Indiana Jones too. And I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy because I think Batman was the number one grossing movie in 1989. I want to say Indiana Jones and Last Crusade was number two.
Probably so. Probably so. I do remember seeing them both in the theater, even though that was quite a busy year for me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if I can, I don't know what they do in movie magic, right? It's movie magic, but Harrison Ford's like what, 80?
Yeah. And Michael Keaton's 70.
Yeah, he's 70 and they're kicking it. And I'm like, I hope to God when I'm that age, I can still pull it off.
Right. Oh,
right?
I'm sure you can, Bob.
But I was I want to tell a funny story. I taught class this morning, Rick. I teach class every Friday morning, and after my class ends at 8:45, another professor comes in that I'm friendly with, and we spend a few minutes chatting. And as I'm chatting with her, one of her students comes in, first student, and a nice young man. And as I'm leaving, he looks at me and he goes, "Excuse me, how old are you?" and I said, "Well, I'm 55." And he says, "Oh, thank you." And so the teacher who
what do you have a bet?
Yeah, I know, right? The teacher, who is a friend of mine, her last name is Strange. So she goes by Dr. Strange, which is nice, right? It's nice. Of course. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, awesome.
So she goes, "Joshua, why the heck would you ask him that?" And he said, "But I wanted to know because he looks young, but he has all that gray hair."
Hey, there you go. So Bob, now you just have to do a little
touch up.
What's that?
What's that? I don't know.
I'm going to wash that gray right out of my hair. I'm going to wash. Yeah,
I know. I've been making fun of I'm not even going to say I'm making fun of for coloring her hair. But I'm married to her. And so I called her immediately and I said, "Hey, where do you get that stuff?"
Right.
So, those guys are looking pretty good for 70 and 80 respectively.
Yeah, they are. Where do you get hair? I could use some. Bob.
Well, I'll keep bagging it up. I cut it at home. So
I know.
Yeah.
I'm 52 and I was at a work function and a lot of people, I'm older than most people at my colleagues. And one of them found out how old I was and she's like, "Wow, you look really good for your age." And I'm like, "You just keep that between us." No one needs to know my age.
The other thing I get is, "Wow, you look pretty good for 55 and you're still into comics."
All of our listeners probably have gotten that, right?
They know that one, right?
Yeah. You know what? We're young at heart.
Gotta stay kids where it counts.
I know. Yeah. I will say, I don't like doing this too often, but my ex-wife, she had said this about me, I don't know, a dozen years ago. So maybe I'm like 40. And she pointed out, this is, I think we were actually going through a divorce at the time. And she points out that I still read comics and that because of that, I'm immature and I have a fetish.
Oh,
reading comics is a fetish.
Yes.
Now I was like,
maybe she was disappointed. That was the fetish. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. But I was kind of like, that's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
That's ignorant.
I'm sure a lot of listeners get that. A lot of the listeners get that.
Yeah.
We've all heard that once or twice.
Right. Well, we're just young at heart. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. And I think if we've learned anything here today, Rick, and over the last 125 episodes, it's that you can learn an awful lot from a comic story.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
God knows my vocabulary is big.
Well done.
Yes, thank you. It's elephantine.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, Bob, we talked about we're covering today Amazing Spider-Man, but we didn't say what we're covering. We're covering issues 323 through 325. It is parts 4, 5, and 6 of a 6-part story. And I know the listeners are like, what? That's crazy. Why would you do that to us? We wouldn't know the first half story. Well, first of all, first half of the story doesn't have Captain America, so who cares?
What's the point? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So we're getting into the last 3 parts of the story, which actually has Captain America in it. But why are we doing this? Well, Amazing Spider-Man during that time period, 1989, was towards the end of a 2-year run by one Mr. Todd McFarlane. Now, Todd McFarlane was a huge superstar by this point. He, like I said, he had been on Amazing Spider-Man for about 2 years at this point, and he is rocking it. In fact, he moves off of this to his own new series just called Spider-Man, and he is the writer and artist on that. So this is towards the very end of that. But one thing about Todd McFarlane I thought was kind of cool is, today is, if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out, it's March 15th. Todd's birthday is March 16th, and he was born in 1961. So tomorrow, if you're listening to this when it first comes out, Todd McFarlane's turning 62. Now, if you didn't feel old before, Bob, that should probably make you feel pretty old.
Right. Yeah, I know that does actually. Right. Because I certainly remember when he was just coming into his heyday. And that seems like yesterday.
I know. Do you remember seeing the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, 1989? Do you remember seeing it in the theater? Do you remember where you were or anything like that? I know we talked about this before. You were like, I have a bad memory. I don't remember things like that.
Memory. But I remember that there were only 2 movie theaters within driving distance. One was in Lawrence, that was a new theater, and one was in Merrimack and off Route 3. And that was the one I usually went to because it was a lot closer and it was certainly cheaper. So I'm sure I saw it there.
Okay. Yeah, I actually remember being in the movie theater, so excited to see this movie. Now, this was between my freshman and sophomore summer, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year in college. So I'm 18 going on 19. And so I'm still a kid, right? And I'm so excited because this was the first real serious comic book movie, out there, at least for superheroes.
Right.
And,
budget,
prior to that, it was, the stuff you saw on TV, right? Like the Spider-Man and Hulk and
we had Superman. Well, we had Superman by then.
That's true.
But,
that's true. But that's very true. But this one was serious and darker. And I was so excited to see this mature version of Batman. And I remember going to the theater with my mom and dad, and it was a packed house, packed. So I didn't actually sit with them because there wasn't enough space. So I sat in front of them, and I was sitting next to this young Black lady. She probably was maybe just a couple of years older than me. I don't know. But I treated her like she was my best friend, and like we had been friends for a very long time, because I would sit there and then something would happen and I'd be like, that's Harvey Dent. He turns into Two-Face, and I'm like talking to her, I'm like geeking out, and I'm sure, and she was laughing. She
never went back to the movie theater again.
No. Yeah. She's probably still telling this story to somebody else, now, when she thinks of Batman I had this guy sitting next to me. He was just chatting me up. He was the biggest comic geek. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Good movie. Good times.
Yep. Well, speaking of comic geeking out, we do have another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Bob.
Awesome.
I know. So this one is given by RL Sharp 77. And
that's one of my favorite RL Sharps, I might
of all of them.
Yeah, of all of them.
Oh yeah, so that was a good year.
Tops my book.
This one very succinct and to the point. The title is Best Darn Podcast Around, and then what they wrote was Enough said. 5 stars. I'm like, all right,
I love that.
there you
Right to
go.
the point.
Very
Thank
much
you.
so. Thank you,
Yeah.
RL Sharp 77. We appreciate that. Now,
You do.
if you want to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and you can make a request. I could do it in a silly accent. I could do it in a particular character's voice. Leave it in the review, and I will do that for you.
Mhm. Please do it. Please, I'm begging you.
Yeah, Bob, are you do you have any suggestions for our listeners of what voice you'd like to hear me do it in?
Oh, I always enjoy when you do Monty Python voices, Rick. I always enjoy that. I thought of you. I saw an article this week about how exercising 10 minutes a day can reduce your risk for heart disease and stroke and certain forms of cancer. And the picture they showed was side by side. They had a picture of somebody out like speed walking, and then next to it, they had a picture of somebody doing a silly walk.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
Little John Cleese action.
They had John Cleese. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, this was like on CNN, So
awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So one other thing I want to mention before we get into the comic is what's going on right now in our Captain America comic book fans Facebook group. So if you're not part of that group, make sure you join. It's a lot of fun. This is our 3rd annual Cap Madness. We tie this in with March Madness. We have our little bracket going on. First year we did favorite Captain America artists. Jack Kirby beat out Mike Zeck as favorite Captain America artist. Last year, we'd had favorite Captain America covers. And I do think Mike Zeck won that. I can't remember which one. But that we did last year covers. This year, we're doing writers, favorite Captain America writers, not best, favorite. Right? No one can argue with you on who your favorite is. So we're going to keep it positive. We're only focusing on our favorite Captain America artists. So the way it works is just like any other bracket. We start with 32 writers. The criteria was they had to write at least 5 issues of a Captain America series story. I had to throw a couple miniseries in the end just to get to 32. We went through a rigorous process of seeding. So people went ahead and they liked all the different ones they liked, so that way we could seed them. And so just like you would in like an NCAA bracket, you have the top seeded against the least seeded, and then, they move on from there. So we have right now we're in the main bracket where we have 32. So what do you do? How do you win? You go to the Facebook group every day at noon Eastern time. I will post 2 writers. All you have to do is vote for the one that you like. Now, to make it fun, to make it interesting, in the comments section, you want to say, this is why I love this writer. Here's some stories that he did. Post a few covers, whatever you want to do. You want to, sway it positively towards your person. The more, the merrier. We love that. Now, right now, the heavy favorites, Bob. Are you paying attention? Do you have any guess, or do you have any guess on who the heavy favorites are?
I do think, we're definitely going to see a Mark Waid. We're going to see Grunwald. I think there's going to be a Stan Lee. Will certainly rise to the top. Beyond that, I think maybe an Ed Brubaker.
Yeah.
For sure.
Honestly, Stan Lee didn't make the top 5 in the seeding.
Yeah.
He was just outside the top 5. Top 5 were some of those you mentioned: Mark Grunwald, Mark Waid, Ed Brubaker, but also J.M. DeMatteis.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Steve Englehart.
Yep. 2 I voted for right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. So interesting.
Yeah. So check it out every day on the Facebook group, noon Eastern time. A new poll will go up, and we're going to keep doing this on a daily basis until we get to a winner of your favorite Captain America writer.
Yeah. Good. I think this is great. This is a great. I applaud you for coming up with this and doing all the legwork to make this happen. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I really look forward to the conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get to that comic we talked about, Bob.
Uma pausa no seu podcast para falar sobre a beleza, essa força poderosa que nos move. No Grupo L'Oréal, nós criamos a beleza com sustentabilidade. Utilizamos em nossas embalagens 85% de plástico PET de origem reciclada. 65% dos ingredientes vieram de base biológica ou derivados de minerais abundantes. Grupo L'Oréal, nós criamos a beleza que move o mundo.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira, pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
So Amazing Spider-Man issue 323 had a release date of July 4th, 1989, cover date of November 1989. The writer, David Michelinie. He had been on the series for quite some time. Penciler, as I mentioned before, going on basically 2 years now, is Todd McFarlane. He's also inking his own work. The colorist is friend of the show, Bob Sharon. Letterer, Rick Parker. I wonder if he ever got teased about that at Marvel. You know, hey, is Peter your brother? Editor Jim Salokrup. Would you like to hear the solicitation for this one?
Oh, I would. I would indeed.
Well, sorry, I don't have that. Wasn't provided. I got to keep you guessing. Every once in a while, there's gonna wah wah. So this is the assassination. Okay, and I'm going to put this out. It's assassin nation plot, not assassination, assassination plot. Oh, they were so clever with that. Why? Because it actually involves a few different nations that are, there's an assassination that gets a few different nations fighting towards each other. You'll get caught up as we go through this. Unfortunately, there's not a recap.
You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Yep. All right, Bob, do you want to maybe take the listeners through the cover?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting cover, Rick. This cover has always jumped out for me for a couple of reasons. One is it's got a great, Cap takes up a big chunk of this cover, right? And he's standing there and he's got a clenched fist in his right hand and his left arm is raised above his shoulder and it's got the shield on it. And he's looking downward. He's got a really intense look on his face. And then behind him on the wall is, of course, Spidey, right? And Spidey's in an inverted pose, clinging to the wall. And so I love that aspect of this cover. What confuses me, however, is that string-like material. And that's always bothered me. Do you know, what is that?
You talking about the web?
Is that what it is?
The webbing.
It looks like barbed wire.
It does. That was something that Todd McFarlane really made famous for Spider-Man. He made the webbing to have that barbed wire look, where it's all intertwined on each other. And was one of the things that kind of made him unique and different and cool. So yeah, that's totally a him thing.
I was not aware.
I don't think he's the first to do it, but he's certainly the one who made it popular.
Huh. Okay. All right. You see, you learned something from this show, folks. At least I did.
At the top, it has the Assassination Plot, part 4 of 6, now on sale twice a month. And we have the webbing behind all of the logo and the writing. And I like the box. It says, make way for Captain America. And Captain America is done in the Captain America font that is going on right now on that series. So going on over in Cap's book right now, at this time period, July of 1989, a release date, cover date, November of 1989. It's actually the end of the Bloodstone hunt. So we just finished a bi-weekly book here, 6-part story, The Bloodstone Hunt, which was written by Mark Grunwald and art by Kieran Dwyer and Danny Belandi. And so so that's what's going on in Cap's book. If you want to, that helps kind of place you in the story that typically, or the depiction of Captain America at that time. All right, so we open up to a gigantic splash page, and it is the character by the name of Solo, not Han Solo, Solo. And he's a mercenary / vigilante. He wears an all green jumpsuit that allows his hair to stick out, and he has, you know, pistols and knives and grenades and boleros and everything all over him. He's just one big, you know, arsenal, if you will, walking around. He does have one particular gadget that makes him kind of unique, is he is a teleporter that he can kind of zap in and zap out. But he is kind of like a Punisher. He goes in and he just kills people. And quite frankly, this is 1989 going on 1990. This is very common in the comics world, where, you know, you start to see more of these dark characters.
It's the Bernie Getz effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it reads, in the sewers beneath Paris, a darkness has come to the City of Light. Terrorists from Ultimatum, bent on blowing up the famed Arc de Triomphe. And all that stands against them is a man who suddenly sparkles into existence in their midst, a man as volatile and deadly as the C4 explosives they carry, a man called Solo. And Bob, what does ultimatum stand for again?
It's French for a bad guy.
It does. There's not some sort of handy dandy little editor's note there.
Oh, is there? I gotta probably scroll down. No, there's no editor's note. Doggone it. Oh man. You know, quality really went down in the 80s.
Yeah, apparently we gotta make a little letter, send a letter in to Jim Salicrup. So ultimatum, right? Cap fans should know who ultimatum is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've covered them in one or two of our podcasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So bad guys, originally led by the Flag Smasher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And of course they oppose any national identity, right? So they're anti-nationalism.
Yes.
Not necessarily anarchists in the traditional sense, but against any sense of national identity or national sovereignty.
And the title to this particular issue is
Assault Rivals. I mean, it's
not,
in Paris.
Nice. So not assault rifles, assault rivals.
Rivals. Yes.
Ah. So there's a lot of firing back and forth and a lot of bravado being, you know, thrown at each other and so forth. And Solo basically rips them apart with his machine gun and they're getting shot down. He the irony is not lost on me. He says, "You think the ends justify the means. You're wrong." And then he throws a knife into some guy's heart.
Different time.
Yeah, I guess he thinks the ends justify the means. But anyway, so there's one guy left after he slaughters all the others, and he puts his arms up in the air and he throws his gun down. He says, "I give up." And Solo just says, "Sorry, not interested. Now tell me, where's your regional leader, Major Tyler Wheel?" And he puts the gun right in the guy's face and he's like, "But I surrendered. This isn't right." And then he jams it through his eye mask. "You're a terrorist. You murder children. Don't talk to me of morality." "I'm no terrorist. I'm a freedom fighter." "Then you'll be a freedom fighter without a face." And then he basically tells him where he is. So he leaves, and then the guy thinks he can reach for his gun, and he asks him, "Who are you?" "I'm Batman." Oh, sorry. I got my streams crossed. I'm called Solo, and there's one other thing you should probably know about me, why I live. And he takes a grenade, pulls out the pin, and throws it at him. While I live, terror dies. And then you see an explosion. Yeah. But in Symkaria, which is a country somewhere in Europe, right?
It sounds like it is. I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the castle of symbolic ruler King Stefan, terror had been very much alive the day before, and it has struck with savage suddenness, much as eggs and assorted produce now strike the limousine of the arriving American ambassador. They don't like us very much, do they, sir? Grayson, their king's fiancée, was killed in a terrorist attack. During the same conflict, someone murdered their prime minister. And evidence has been found linking both incidents to the Central Intelligence Agency. Really? Can you blame them? So they go inside, and they're talking to Ambassador Hawthorne, and the acting prime minister, Alphonse Galactic, is there, and says basically Silver Sable is there to brief in. He said her company was in charge of security during the Royal Jubilee, and she is personally conducting an investigation into the recent slayings. Bob, for our listeners, can you tell them who Silver Sable is?
I really can't, Rick. I think I've only read one comic with Silver Sable in it.
Does that include this one?
No, but this is the second. First one was I read an Amazing Spider-Man story where Peter Parker went to Northern Africa to find out who really was responsible for the death of his parents. And Silver Sable was involved in that storyline as well. Turned out it was Albert Malik, the Soviet Red Skull. Yeah.
So can you describe what Silver Sable looks like?
I sure can, and I would love to.
I figured that was
one heck of a woman. This is in my wheelhouse. So she is tall and lean and mean, Rick, and she is dressed entirely in some sort of white, tight fabric.
Some would say silver.
Silver. Yeah, it's silver-ish. Yeah. And she has, of course, very silver hair as well. And of course, she's got gauntlets on. Those are match her uniform, silver, and boots as well, with high heels, oddly enough, in this particular instance. So she is certainly from head to toe, silvery white in appearance.
Yeah. And a little background on Silver Sable. Her name is not Silver Sable. It is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Silvija Sablenova, something like that. Silvija, Silvija Sablenova. But she goes by Silver Sable. So she's like a mercenary. She leads this group called the Wild Pack. They hunt down war criminals. She's the owner of Silver Sable International. So as a mercenary, she's basically, a warrior for hire. She does come from the country, Symkaria. So she is in that, small European country. So that is her home base. So she's been around for, only a few years at this point. I think her first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man 265. She was created by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz. So that's a major person in this particular story of the assassination plot. The ambassador comes in to talk to Miss Sable, and hanging from the ceiling is Spider-Man. He's there. And he says, "Boy, am I glad to hear an American accent. Hang on, I'll be right down." and he's hanging from the ceiling with that webbing that you were curious about, Bob. With that little barbed wire looking webbing.
Yeah.
A lot of detail into the webbing. I mean, sure, it takes a lot more time to draw that. And there's a lot of detail going into Spider-Man's costume too.
Yeah, that is true. Lots of detail on the webbing pattern.
So the ambassador says to Sable, "What worries me most, Miss Sable, is reports of massing troops. Don't you think your country is overreacting?" Mr. Ambassador, when Silver Sable International uncovered an assassination conspiracy and linked it to the questionable American institutions, such as the Life Foundation, we hired Spider-Man to help protect the presumed target, King Stefan. But when ULTIMATUM attacked, providing a diversion, something ripped our prime minister to pieces instead, and near the corpse we found a capsule of panadoxin, a rare poisoned issued to CIA field agents. That alone isn't proof of American involvement, but it is enough to stoke the fires of anger and of retribution. But Miss Sable, America's Symkarian's friend, and Iran was your enemy. You sold them missiles. What's she referring to there, Bob?
Damn, that was cold. Well, she's referring to the Iran-Contra affair, Rick, I suppose, when we sold missiles to Iran in contravention of armament restriction laws and used the proceeds to fund the Contra rebels in Central America under the Reagan administration. Ollie North, remember? Do you remember watching those?
I do.
You remember watching those hearings?
Yeah.
Remember Fawn?
Yeah, you're rocking a little bit of that Ollie North gray right now.
Yeah, I sure am. It finally caught up to me. Right. Yeah.
Spidey butts in here. Hey guys, isn't the important thing finding the assassin? Then we can show whether or not. Butt out, Spider-Man. Huh? Haven't you done enough already? The mere presence of an American vigilante whose criminal ties have been hinted at in reputable publications only lends credence to anti-American sentiment. Reputable? You mean someone besides J. Jonah Jameson is bashing me now? Maybe I should look for a more sympathetic ear. Where are you going? To address my adoring public. And he walks out. This whole murder thing's shaking me up. Wish I could just go home and be Peter Parker. And the people at home who care about Peter Parker are probably worried silly. I'm too much in the spotlight now to call them, but maybe there's another way to get the word out. And he walks up to the press, who are standing outside the gate. Hi, folks. Those cameras live? Transmitting to the U.S.? Good. I've got a statement to make. I'd like the people to know that it has never been my intention, nor have I performed any act whatsoever to embarrass the United States of America. In truth, I'm being a model citizen, and everything is just fine. So they cut to Queens and the boarding house run by May Parker. Who's May Parker, Bob?
Aunt May?
Maybe she's making some wheat cakes.
For Nathan, yeah.
Now, if Spider-Man is meddling in international affairs, he has his gall. Nathan, hush. And then Mary Jane's standing there with Aunt May and Nathan. Nathan's just an older man in a wheelchair watching the TV. And she thinks to herself, Peter punched the model. I hope not.
That would bring shame, probably. Yeah.
Peter punched the word model, referring to my modeling career. That message was for us. Oh, May, I forgot to tell you. Peter called from his photo assignment in Symkarian. He's okay. That was a bit careless to forget, Mary Jane, but I am glad to hear that Peter is safe. So am I. I just hope he stays that way. So in conclusion, I'd like to... Hey, where's everybody going? They're all bored with his really nothing to say speech. And they look up. One of the reporters says, "He's here." And Spidey thinks, who's he? He is a man who will always find a way when his country stands threatened, when freedom is compromised, for he is the flag-clad warrior known as Captain America. And he's parachuting in, Bob.
He sure is.
Pretty cool scene, right?
It is a pretty cool scene.
So
I'm wondering, why does he need a parachute?
Oh, yeah. Well, because he's not going into the ocean, right? There's actually solid ground underneath him. So that image, it was so cool, Bob, that Marvel knew what they had there. And so for the 50th anniversary of Captain America, they tried to do some cool promotional things, right? And they went ahead and they turned that image into a bumper sticker.
Oh, so they did.
Right? Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool.
And it says 50th anniversary in the corner, and it's Captain America's red, white, and blue logo. And then on the side here is an image from that exact image. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't you still have that. I can't believe it's not on your minivan.
Well, I didn't get this back in the day. This is actually something I was given to me a few years ago by somebody in our Captain America Comic Book Fans Facebook group.
Wow.
Ken Fries,
Yeah.
who runs a really cool, he runs actually several groups. One that I spend the most time on is the Art of Mike Zeck Facebook group. But Ken, knowing that I'm a huge Captain America fan, came across this and just mailed it out to me.
That was nice.
It is, and I have it taped here on my computer monitor so that I can see it every day.
Nice.
And then the media run up to Captain America. "Captain, is it true you're here by presidential request? Are you representing the Avengers? What about rumors that you're working for the CIA?" And he smiles at the camera, and like a good politician, he just says the right stuff. "For now, ladies and gentlemen, let's just say that I've come to set things right." And Ultimatum is watching the newscast, and they are not too happy about it. Interesting panel here, Bob, by Todd McFarlane.
It is.
It is from the top looking down, but it is extreme. And there's one guy, the major, sitting on the couch. There's a couple of guys behind him. They're all wearing their Ultimatum uniforms, including their masks and goggles. And I don't know why they need to do that when they're inside. But anyway, it's very detailed. I mean, the amount of equipment, that they're looking at, it almost reminds me of like a John Byrne panel.
It is. There's a lot of electronic apparati there. It looks like a lot of communication gear. It looks like, I've seen like racks of equipment like that in secure rooms that, these are all electronic countermeasure equipment and cryptographic stuff. So it actually looks very realistic.
So they're not happy about it. Now, we cut back to Spider-Man, and he's thinking to himself, "I should get away. I'm being treated like hired help. Wasn't even invited to join in their strategy session. I should just grab my passport and kiss this place good." And then, walking in is Captain America. "Are you with us, Spider-Man?" "Huh? Captain America has assured me that your government was not involved. With his reputation, that is enough for me. But not, I'm afraid, for a country full of enraged citizens crying for blood." And then we cut to the next panel, which is kind of a cool panel.
Another cool panel, yeah.
Spider-Man, who is sitting on top of an old statue, kind of broken without the arms and so on. He's now standing on the side of it, like his feet, are sticking to it, but he has the strength to just stand straight.
He's parallel to the floor.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like he was standing up straight off the floor, but at a 90-degree angle. Did I get that right? 90-degree angle? Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ironically, the CIA has provided information indicating an ultimatum stronghold on the Symkaria-Latvian border. As I was telling Silver, our best bet would be to send in an assault force and try to find the actual assassin. That way we could prove that America wasn't behind the murders. Gee, why didn't I think of that? Your contract has been fulfilled, Spider-Man. You can pick up your payment at our embassy in New York. What you do now is up to you. If I was smart, I'd get the heck out of here. If I was smart, I wouldn't look back. If I was smart, I'd be in another line of work. And he follows him into the helicopter. And slightly more than an hour later, along Symkaria's mountainous northern edge, that ski lodge used to be Mecca for Europe's jet set. But it was closed some months ago for repairs. Isolated, defensible, Ultimatum's probably very secure in there. And warm. Next time I gotta bring my thermal Spidey suit. My wild pack agents will remain here to stop anyone trying to flee. The three of us will then tackle the main building. Seem sound to you, Captain? Cap nods, and as the stalwart trio begins their cautious descent on the rocky slope. I appreciate you coming along, Spider-Man, but do you mind if I ask why you decided to join up? It might sound corny, then again, maybe not to you, but heck, America's my country too. Good for you, son. And he smiles and he pats Spidey on the back. Maybe not so good. Spider sense tingling, warning of, look out! Ultimatum ski troops hidden under the powder. Only a couple of dozen. I expected primary defenses to be a bit more formidable. And in the time between, he said a bit more and formidable, he tosses his shield, which goes and ricochets off of all of them, making all kinds of sound effects, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Fa-ting! Spunk!
And then he catches it and he punches the last one. The Spidey thinks to himself, gaining the high ground should give me an advantage over, jet skis are really jet powered. They're taking to the air. But one quick move and he grabs the jet ski from one and he flings the guy. And Ultimatum's got its first astronaut. Well, he probably just killed the guy. Right? I mean, he just flung him up straight up in the air.
Yeah.
And they were already up high in the air when he did that. And then Silver Sable throws some throwing weapons, and she jams the skier's boards. And then she makes some short work of them. And then the major, the guy that they're all after, is inside, and he decides to he needs to get out of there. He seems pretty yellow, and based on some previous comments, and so he's going to set off the explosives on the side of the mountain, which will kill the ski soldiers. But hey, they're going to die with honor. But right before he does that, who zaps in, Bob?
Solo.
Was that your Jabba the Hutt accent? What the hell was that?
A little bit.
Solo. I am Solo, your executioner. Guards. And then so they're starting firing. There's a little fire action going on. And got a little more blood going and some massacre. Wow. But the major runs away and he gets to the escape craft. He gets on that, and just as he's about to get away, Solo shows up and shoots the guards. But just before Solo could shoot him, Spidey, Cap, and Silver Sable break through. Is that a wall, a door? I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like a wall. You know?
Okay.
It seemed they could have used the door. But...
Yeah, I guess. They look like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah.
It does. It's funny because it's true.
One of them's armed. I'll take care of the gun, and I'll take out the gunman. And he does. And he throws the shield right into Solo, who knocks him back into a wall. But the Major escapes. Helicopter squad, initiate pursuit, northwest trajectory, immediately. You idiots. That was Toller Whale, one of Ultimum's top officers. By stopping me, you've set him free. And just who the blazes are you? Solo, and I'm on your side. Solo, eh? I've heard of you. You're a self-proclaimed anti-terrorist whose origins are somewhat hazy and whose methods are somewhat questionable. I get the job done. Ideology isn't important now. We still need information on the Prime Minister's assassin. When I first encountered Whale, he was at what appeared to be a communications center, just down the corridor. Meet you there. And Spidey jumps off. Now that's a cool pose by Spidey, isn't it?
That is pretty well done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. He's leaning. He's got one leg behind, one arm behind. He's got his knee moving forward. It's a very actionable pose. I mean, you know, no wonder he was really popular. Like that was something you just didn't normally see.
Yeah, I got to give him that.
Moments later, I caught this guy trying to erase computer records. I don't know how successful he was. He wouldn't give me the access codes to call the menu. And so he's hanging upside down by a web. And Solo goes over to him and puts a gun in his face. He will talk or he will die. Just a minute, mister. We don't work that way. Easy, Captain. Why don't you let me talk to him? Very well, Silver. I'll keep an eye on Solo. And then she walks up to him and pulls out a knife, puts it in his face. You know, a gun would have been quicker. And she smiles. Access code 9Z Delta. And Spidey notices this. Gosh, Sable, I'll bet you and Solo could be real buddies. I get the job done. Soon outside, they're talking, the four of them. You're welcome to come along, Solo, if you're willing to follow the rules. My computer experts were able to piece bits of data together. Their ferreted likely lead to Whale's whereabouts. Solo replies, I follow my own rules. And then he zaps out. Give my regards to Captain Kirk. No, I get that reference.
I love it.
We were able to retrieve a printout of the man who was hired for the actual assassination. Sabretooth, but I thought he was dead. Why don't I find out? You two go after Whale. We can compare notes later. I think maybe I should go with you, Silver. After all, Sabretooth has to be alive to testify. Suspicion doesn't become you, Captain. And then Paladin shows up. Who's Paladin, Bob?
He's a big guy with a gun.
But he's a mercenary too,
Big,
right?
Big guy with a gun and a visor. Yeah. Another one of those late 80s, early 90s guys.
Yeah.
That was
In
popular
an
at the
all
time.
purple padded outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, there were a lot of them then.
Yeah. We just had word from the Capitol. The American ambassador has been recalled because of death threats. If something isn't done soon, the next step could be war. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we're going to cut to issue 324. Bob, let's get to the cover. It is Sabretooth on the cover. Wowzers. Take the listeners through it, Bob.
Wow. I don't even know where to begin with that, Rick. You know, look, there are folks who are huge fans of like the art from this period, and particularly Todd McFarlane, because he puts so much line detail into his illustrations. And this is a prime example, right? You look at Sabretooth, just like the inking on his muscles, the detail on his flowing hair, the detail on his claws. I mean, then of course in the background you have a cliff. They're on a cliff, and you can see the edge of the cliff. There's so much detail here, and in the foreground, of course, you see Spidey's hands, and he's just getting ready, to fire his webbing out of both hands. But that's all you see are his hands in the foreground, and even on the hands, there's so much detail on the design pattern of Spidey's suit. This is just like an exemplar of McFarlane's level of detail.
Indeed. Yeah, and like you said, like Spidey's got his hands up, which is pretty cool. And one thing I failed to mention in the little box at the bottom where sometimes you see the barcodes, right? This one has a close-up picture of Sabretooth's face. Last one had a close-up picture of Captain America's face. So that's kind of cool. So this is the Assassination Plot, part 5 of 6. And the other thing too, Bob, about Sabretooth, the reason they thought Sabretooth was dead was because he was believed to have died in New Mutants 75. This was after a battle with the X-Men and X-Factor in those issues. Uncanny X-Men 243, X-Factor 39, but he didn't die. And in fact, he showed up in Wolverine number 10, where that's a famous, expensive key issue in Wolverine Volume 2. So that and then he shows up here, but not too many people knew that he was alive. Now, the creators. I just want to point this out. This is a little interesting. The creators for this one, David Michelinie is still the writer, but it is not Todd McFarlane as the penciler and inker. Instead, we have a guest penciler, Erik Larsen. Now, Erik, we had as a guest on the show not too long ago. He was on episode 117. I want to say, if you want to check that out. It was a really cool conversation with Erik, but he had originally he did like one issue of Amazing Spider-Man. I want to say it was in the 280s, like 287 or something like that. And so now he's back with this issue, which is 324, as a fill-in artist, but he will be taking over as Todd McFarlane's regular artist on the book. As I mentioned before, Todd is moving off this book to do his own Spider-Man series. The inker for this is Al Gordon, and then the others are still the same. Colorist Bob Sharon, letterer Rick Parker, and editor Jim Salicrup. Bob, would you like to hear the solicitation for this one?
I'm hesitant to say yes, Rick, but I can't help myself. Yes, I would.
In Symkaria, Captain America and Silver Sable confront Sabretooth, the true assassin of Symkaria's prime minister. Meanwhile, in the United States, Spidey and Solo track down the current ultimatum bigwig. And on top of that, diplomatic relations between Symkaria and the U.S. have not only broken off, Symkaria is sending death squads after U.S. politicians.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah. So this one, we open up to a giant splash page of Spider-Man hanging upside down, and he is looking at a ultimatum soldier who is webbed up, hanging upside down. And the title to this story, Bob, is
Tuesday. That's
you gonna
good,
elaborate?
isn't it?
You gonna elaborate?
Yeah, of course I am, Rick. So it's an extension of what this panel, this big splash page. We see the webbing extended, and it goes down to the bottom of the panel where it actually forms the letters for Tuesday, but it's spelled as in the number 2, pluralized, twos, and day.
It's a little play on words.
It is.
Do we know why yet?
We don't.
Oh. So Erik Larsen is doing his best imitation of Todd McFarlane. If you look back on his Amazing Spider-Man 287 that he did, the artwork looks completely different. He's absolutely trying to emulate Todd McFarlane's webbing, his Spider-Man costume, even some of the hair, the costumes, things like that. He did that. And when we talked to him, I believe in when he was on the show, he talked a little bit about how it was important. He learned very quickly that when he was taking over a book, that it was important to emulate the artist to not have as big a shock. He also had some really cool stories about, the importance of layouts and splash pages and how to use them, when to use them. So check that out. That's, like I said, episode 117. So it reads, your trick is terror. Your dance is destruction. And you come to Ellis Island to ply a bit of both. As an ultimatum soldier, you've brought skill and plenty of explosives. You're good at your job, but then so is Spider-Man. Guess we can call this a wrap, huh, guys? And we cut to the next page, and there's like, I don't know, half a dozen Ultimate Agents all in a big ball of spider webs, right? They're all just kind of, it's almost like, like when you see a whole bunch of people in a net that gets pulled up into the air and they're all kind of pushed together. Right. Yeah. Except it's webbing. So they're trying to, and there's a whole bunch of weapons laying on the floor underneath. You've slowed us, but you'll never stop, Ultimatum. We'll unite this planet despite your interference. Right, by blowing up Ellis Island, the historic gateway for immigration to America. You're going to bring people together. In destroying symbols, we shatter borders, and without borders, people will no longer be separated by political dogma. Mister, I've seen healthier minds bouncing around padded cells. What about the innocent renovation workers who would have been here when your bomb went off in the morning? Doesn't death mean anything to you? And one guy thinks to himself, not if the right people die. And he pulls out a gun. Spider sense tingling. He's got a, wait, behind me. Solo. And Solo shows up, and he just takes his machine gun out and fires at the whole ball of Ultimatum Agents. Stop it. And he webs the gun and pulls it away. You didn't have to kill them. I saw the gun. I couldn't know that. Besides, they were terrorists. And while I live, yeah, I know, terror dies. I learned all about your philosophy in Symkaria, but what we're up against now is more important than any personal crusade, or have you forgotten? And he holds up a nice newspaper that in the headline reads, Crisis Grows. That when Sabretooth assassinated the Symkaria Prime Minister, he left evidence implicating the CIA. That's why Captain America and Silver Sable have gone after Sabretooth. And I'm looking for Toller Whale, the ultimatum officer who engineered the murder. These loonies could have given me a clue. I won't apologize, but I do see your point. Then why not work with me? Cap sources have another lead they're looking into. I prefer autonomy, but I suppose the ends could justify the means. I will call the Symkaria embassy. Leave any messages for me there. He's walking away, not winking out. Are there limits to his powers? Sheesh, there's so much I don't know about that guy. And with the stakes so high, that could make him as dangerous as helpful. I just hope Cap's doing better on his end. And he swings away, leaving a big ball of bloody dead ultimatum agents hanging from the ceiling.
Seems like that might raise some questions.
I know. Good times. And then we see a dagger being thrown into a picture of Sabretooth, hitting him in the head. Sabretooth must die. We need Sabretooth alive, Silver. His testimony could prove that the CIA wasn't involved in the assassination. It could prevent a war. In Symkaria, Captain, we believe in justice. Even my company, Silver Sable International, was originally founded to track down Nazi war criminals. There's a difference between justice and retribution, Silver. We need Sabretooth's statement to defuse a bad situation, to save lives. That's why we tracked him here to his latest freelance operation. I know, and I assure you, I will do the right thing. Now, that's very pointed, and I don't mean it because she's just pointing her finger.
Nicely done.
Right? But a little emphasis on the word right thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's always like the villain who pays somebody to do something and says, "Oh, you'll get your just rewards. You'll get what you deserve. You'll get what's coming to you," right? Like it's always so like, telegraphed. I feel like that's the case here. So they get over the site and they parachute out. And Cap again is in a parachute, Bob.
Again, yes.
And they land in the jungle below, and there's a bunch of I don't know what they're called. Soldiers?
It looks like a band of cold-eyed outlaws to me.
Okay. Yeah, because they do look mean and scruffy, right? So they're certainly drawn to look not like nice people.
Yeah.
Ay caramba. And there's Captain America with the moon lit behind him in the jungle, walking up to these ne'er-do-wells who are drinking alcohol and playing cards.
Oh,
sounds like a horrible time.
Thank goodness they're not smoking.
Yeah. What's that one guy doing with his back to us? Is he taking a leak into the bushes? Like, what is he doing?
But I gotta say, that guy on the far right of the panel with the glasses, he looks like, remember Detective Franz from Hill Street Blues?
I don't see a guy at far right glasses.
You don't? He's the guy who's immediately in the foreground going, "Him?"
Well, yeah, I see 6 people.
Oh, well, there's a 7th.
Is there?
What I'm looking at.
I need to pull out here. Let's see.
That's what she said.
I know. I was just about to. I was like, I just said, oh yeah, all right. Now that I pulled out, Bob,
Yeah.
I can see better.
Yeah. It's like turning down the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you see better. Like, that's Detective Franz from Hill Street Blues.
Yeah, I could see that. Sure. I'm looking for Sabretooth. I hear you recently aided him. Where is he? Just like that. Fa. Maybe you are big deal north of the border, Capitan, but this is our country. Only a fool would come here alone. I agree. And then here's those throwing, what are they called? Chies?
Throwing chies?
Yeah.
Is that a tea? Throwing chai tea?
No, it's like CHAI.
Sai. Oh yeah, yeah. But those are like the 3-pointed daggers, right?
I thought Sai was SAI.
Yeah.
Like the weapon that Elektra has.
Right.
No, these are written as CHAI.
Oh.
So is that a Kai, a Chai? What do you think they're called?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Never heard of them.
They're kind of like throwing stars that are knocking weapons out of people's hands. And then Silver Sable comes up and she kicks one in the gut. And then she throws a smoke bomb. Smoke! I cannot see! That's the point, amigo. Bandits running. Have to grab the leader. Now, where's Sabretooth? Talk. Your reputation precedes you. You will not harm me. That's right. He won't. Un momento, señorita. Forgive my little jest. Of course I will tell you. In fact, I will take you to him personally. And he has a little lit cigar in his teeth. And he looks scared and sweating. So then we cut to, and it says, while speaking of personal, we cut to 2 champagne glasses being toasted. And it's Peter and Mary Jane in bed. To the sneakiest, most conniving witch on the planet, my wife. Oh, Bob, How often do you use that toast?
Once. Right before my funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, you say the sweetest things, but I haven't landed that role on Secret Hospital yet. I was just called back for a second reading. I know, but you'll get it. Then we'll celebrate with more than ginger ale and late night TV. Hey, Bob, I think I have my favorite panel.
I think I have my t-shirt. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I just may have to put that in my time capsule for later,
Wow.
too.
Holy cow. Yeah.
All right. Well, Bob, maybe you should describe to the listeners what we're looking at here.
I am like I'm dumbfounded by this panel, quite honestly, because it shows Peter in his striped pajamas, that he borrowed from Dick Van Dyke.
Mm-hmm.
And he's laying there in the bed with Mary Jane, and they're both toasting with ginger ale in their martini glasses, and he's facing toward us and she's facing really like toward him.
Mm-hmm.
And the covers are down to her knees anyway, and she's wearing lingerie, a pink lingerie, and
go on.
Yeah, her posterior is quite visible. Quite visible. And let's just say that lingerie is perhaps a size too small. Yeah, it's well illustrated.
It is. I think it, I don't know why, but I'm looking at that and it reminds me of a Valentine.
It must be Valentine's Day, right? Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, it's like a big heart on. What? Heart shaped.
Yeah, I don't know why people think we're immature for reading comics.
It's not the comics, folks.
Oh
my goodness.
Maybe we can combine it with a housewarming party when we move into the new loft. Wow, I'd almost forgotten about that. I was only in Symkaria for a few days, but so much has changed. I mean, after we're gone, the Palermos will be Aunt May's only tenants, besides Nathan. Things are happening pretty fast. Yeah, I know. And they're watching TV, and on the news comes on, have been further developments in the Symkaria crisis. And then we cut to the next day in Central Park in the morning, and Spider-Man is going along into the woods, in Central Park, and he's up in a tree and he's waiting. The information Cap sources gave me had better be right. Otherwise, attacking the Metropolitan Museum isn't going to do wonders for my rep. Now, where is Solo? Gotta be. Who else be wearing an overcoat in the middle of the summer? Except someone hiding about a zillion guns? And he drops down from the tree upside down, hanging from his web. Well, good morning to you too, because Solo's like, aiming it looks like an Uzi at his head. I got your message. What's the game? The remodeling on the museum is being funded by Life Foundation. They were going to hide the Symkaria assassin before Paladin and I butted in. There's a chance they may still be involved. Let's find out. Hey, we need a whale alive, remember? Don't be so eager for blood. I only do what many would do, if not for fear of retaliation. Terror's greatest weapon is that if resisted, the resistors could become the next target. But since I have no country, no politics, no identity, that leaves me free to strike. Without mercy. And he rips off his overcoat and hat, and they start running. And Spidey swings after him. Oh, swell. I feel a lot better now. Don't know which I should watch out for most, my enemy or my ally. Then we cut back to Mexico, and there's a dead guy hanging upside down with blood coming in his body. At least his clothes are all slashed up. And we've got Sabretooth. Meat! That's what you all will be if you question my orders again. No, Senor Sabretooth, we obey. And after a hard trek through the jungle, why Sabretooth's helping bandits steal artifacts from archaeologists? I thought he was an assassin for the Marauders. He apparently has other... Setting fire to the canvas, trying to signal his comrades. So the guy that took him there personally, Bob, took out a cigar and he's lighting the canvas. So she punches him. But it sets off smoke. And so everybody comes running. I'll handle the bandits, Silver. You free the hostages. We'll worry about Sabretooth when the civilians are... Silver? And he sees her chasing after Sabretooth into... what is that? Like a pyramid? What are those like Aztec type of...
Yeah, no, they call them pyramids. They're just
okay.
more ziggurat shaped pyramids, right?
Ziggurat?
Ziggurat.
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 How do you spell that?
Ziggeuraut. So the step pyramids,
Yeah.
right?
I know what I'm looking at. Yes.
Yeah. They were originally, the early Egyptian pyramids were ziggurat shaped. A lot of the, I think ones from like Babylonians were ziggurats.
Interesting. See, I learned something new today. Comics, folks, comics. So she's in there, but it's dark. She doesn't see the Sabretooth, just comes out and kicks her. And basically, he talks about how his senses are sharp as an animal's, almost as sharp as his claws. And then he rips her shoulder with his claws. And she screams out in pain. And then she goes over and she falls onto the wall and she realizes that it's soft. So she decides, it's starting to crumble. So she starts to try to push away at the wall. And then he comes by and he uses his claw and he guts her. So then she's there too. And he's like, not running, just standing against a wall. What's your play, girlie? That is the point, Sabretooth. I am not going to play. You may triumph, but I will not give you the pleasure of a hunt before the kill. Ah, darling, you're breaking my heart. Just the only fun I can have we'll be eating yours. And he goes after her just when Cap shows up and he yells, Silver. And she says, I have to time my leap just. And she does. And the whole wall and ceiling comes clashing down on top of Sabretooth. It makes a loud noise, Bob.
Crumble.
Well done, Bob.
That's a weird noise. Yeah.
More of a description than an actual sound effect. Yeah. And then all we see is a hand underneath the rubble. No pulse. Collapsing wall killed him. Curse it all, Sable. You should have waited for me. Together we could have taken him alive. It was my life or his, Captain. I did what I had to do. Maybe. But now it's all up to Spider-Man. So there's Spider-Man and Solo, and they're on the monitor. And there's a looks like a scientist guy who's, on the monitor watching, and he's talking to Major Whale. So he says, fear not, the gentleman financing his operation spare no expense. He's not only provided you with a luxurious hideout, including the actual renovations that assure your privacy, but he's also supplied outstanding security. And then what happens, Bob?
Well, they're in the Metropolitan Museum, Rick, and all of the suits of armor that are lining the halls suddenly start moving. They come alive, and they're carrying weapons and firearms, not like swords or anything, and they start shooting at Solo and Spidey.
Yeah. So, whereas Solo's suit appears to be bulletproof, Spidey is not, so he's trying to dodge. And then Solo's firing at the suits of armor, but it's just the ricocheting, Bob.
They are. Sping, sping.
So Spidey takes his webbing and he hits them and pulls them together to smash into each other. And those are ancient pieces of armor that are getting destroyed, Bob. Does that make you your Indiana Jones professor heart
It does.
melt a little bit?
Somebody's gonna have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the torch hits the acetylene, and there's a big explosion, Bob.
Krapoo!
You couldn't even say that with straight face.
Krapoom!
Oh yeah. And then
We've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick, hurry. and then Spidey stops Whale from falling. He grabs his boot and he's holding him. And then, he's hanging from the web, but he's grabbing him with his other hand. And he says, "You got to testify, and I don't mean to St. Peter. So you're going to live until." And Solo says, "Drop him, or I'll cut you both in two." Oh, geez. Holding my web line with one hand and Whale with the other. Can't shoot more webbing and can't get away. I'm trapped. I should let Whale go. He's probably responsible for more deaths than Jim Jones. And I've got a family, a wife. I have a life ahead of me. Yeah, a life I'll have to live with myself with what I've done. Sorry, Solo. I can't let anyone die. Not knowingly, not willingly. You're stupid, Spider-Man. And very brave. Perhaps putting Well out of commission might be enough. This time. So they cut back to the Symkarian embassy the next day. And Cap's on the phone. And Spidey says to a bandaged up Silver Sable, "What's the buzz, Cap? Whale spilled the beans?" "Not yet, I'm afraid." "Then maybe there's another way. I mean, we've learned an awful lot. How about we go public with what we do have? Maybe that'll be enough to calm things down." "Too late. I've just been told that Symkaria has formally broken relations with the U.S., and rumors are spreading of death squads sent to murder American officials in retaliation for the Prime Minister. If we don't get definitive proof soon, blood will flow, and whoever is behind this madness, for whatever reasons, will have won." Dun, dun, dun. Next.
Dang.
Target Washington. All right, Bob, getting to issue 325. This is the last part 6 of 6 of the Assassination Plot. The final chapter, guest starring Silver Sable and Captain America. Please let our listeners know about this really cool cover.
It is a really cool cover. So another McFarlane cover. And let's start from the bottom, right? We have what looks to be the skyline of Washington, D.C. with the Capitol building in the foreground in ruins. It's on fire. There's clearly a lot of structural damage to the buildings. Buildings in the background are tilting over. In the foreground, there's other buildings that have collapsed. And then as we move further up the cover, we see Spidey holding in his right hand a tattered American flag. And his left hand, he looks like he's wiping his brow. And there's a lot of smoke billowing behind him. But even further in the background, taking up almost the entirety of this cover, is the visage of none other than the Red Skull.
Dun, dun, dun. And that is a very cool looking skull mask, don't you think?
It is. It's well done. It's well done. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
He's got the black eyes, but sunken with these little beadies in behind him. The brow, the nose, the grinning teeth, and he's got the long cigarette holder.
Mm-hmm.
That the smoke from the cigarette holder is billowing with the smoke coming up from the destruction. And then remember that little corner box in the bottom, the UPC thing?
Yep.
This one is a side view of the Red Skull. So we get back to Todd McFarlane as the penciler and inker, and the rest of the team is the same. And the opening page has a couple of panels, and it is someone stamping the Department of Defense request for security clearance rejected. Security clearance denied. And what's the title of this one, Bob?
It is Finale in red.
Ooh.
So I love the form, the request for security clearance here, because if you look carefully underneath the rejected, you see just a bunch of scribbled lines on several, but except for there's only two things that are legible, and on the second line it says Spider-Man, and then further down on like the fifth line it says Captain America, but everything else is just pure scribbles.
Right. Yeah. It almost reminds me of watching a TV commercial in another language.
Yeah.
Because you hear blah 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 Tide, blah 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 Coca-Cola.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. Yeah. I also love the fact that like this obviously is a file folder. It's Spider-Man's file folder. And on the label it says man, spider.
Yeah, it's funny. Which would be wrong because it's a hyphened name.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Department of Defense.
Yeah.
So the military intelligence sub-headquarters in Manhattan. The decision is final, Captain. Despite my recommendation and that of Silver Sable, we may need Spider-Man, Colonel. We'll need every edge we can get. Since the Prime Minister of Silver's native country, Symkarian, was assassinated and evidence was left to link the murder to the CIA, tensions between our countries have soared. If they build any further, there could be war. Our search for the real mastermind behind the killing has led through Sabretooth, Solo, and the terrorist organization called ULTIMATUM, but we still don't have solid proof. Tyler Whale, the ultimatum leader we captured, has been broken and revealed that the next target will be the Symkarian ambassador to the United States. That's why we're mobilizing a special task force, sending it to Washington to prevent more bloodshed. Denying Spider-Man a place on that task force is ill-advised and unfair. Come on, Colonel, have a heart. Bend a rule. I laid my life on the line for America. That may be, Spider-Man, but you're also tying my hands. You won't remove your mask. Won't let us take fingerprints. Why, we don't even know if you're American. Okay, if that's the way you want it. But when the bombs start falling, just send my draft notice to somebody else. And he flies out, webs out, leaps out of the window. Don't know why I'm so angry. I've never been overly patriotic. Never even thought about it much. So how come I feel humiliated, unworthy? Like a kid whose parents just told him he wasn't good enough to be their son. Beneath his mask, Peter Parker scowls. And these are some cool scenes, him webbing through the inner city. The buildings are pretty cool, nicely done. A tensing that eases only as he approaches his destination, his Aunt May's boarding house in Queens, where in a stuffy, overcrowded attic. And so we see Mary Jane there going over packing, and Peter comes up and says boo, and of course she turns around and she swings at him, but he misses. She misses him because of his Spidey sense. Kind of quick on the trigger, aren't you, Mary Jane? That's what she said.
And who can blame him, really?
So he comes up and he hugs her. Sorry, Peter, you startled me. My fault for acting goofy. Feel like listening a while? My ears are yours, sweetheart. Always. Softly, Peter explains the situation and frustration. So I guess I'll just mope around the house for a few days, let you soothe my wounded ego. You're awfully good at that. Finances are tight with what the move and me being out of work and all, but I'm sure we can swing a round-trip train ticket to Washington for you. Didn't you hear me, MJ? I said I'm out of this. I heard you, but I know you. You won't let go. If someone's in trouble and you can help, you'll help. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with you, silly. I guess you do know me better than I know me. I'll go. Maybe I could take some saleable news photos with my automatic camera. Make the trip pay. Even so, I'll miss you. You'd better. Suitable cuddling ensues. I want to see some of that unsuitable cuddling.
That's what's the Mac? That's the Mac series, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Different line.
I like how he said my automatic camera.
I know, right?
Yeah, it was 1989. That was cutting edge back then.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Washington, D.C., the Pentagon the next day. Your plan for guarding the ambassador seems airtight, Captain America. Thank you. Are there any questions? The elite commando stands silent. They know their jobs well. We'll join up with you later, Colonel. I'd like a word with Silver alone. Last-minute plans, Captain? Last-minute understanding, I hope. Your thirst for vengeance is well known, Silver. I'm asking you to keep it under control. A corpse might not be enough to erase friction between our countries to prevent a war. We need to capture this mastermind alive. How about we keep everyone alive? You, how did you get in? Security around here is set to thwart troops and terrorists, not guys who can walk on ceilings or have a spider sense to forewarn them of danger. What's the matter, Cap? You don't look thrilled. This is the Pentagon. That anyone could break in bothers me. Okay, look, I've been thinking, Will crumpled too easily. My bet is he's a red herring. There's another target, and it's up to us to find it. Not us. The military has Will's confession on tape. My orders are to follow up on that. And I stick with the captain to make sure there isn't a cover-up. Geez, there's such a thing as blind patriotism, you know, and sometimes that could be as dangerous as anarchy. The colonel's waiting in the departure area, Captain. We have to go, Spider-Man. But Will and his cronies are being held in cells in the basement. Perhaps I'll re-question them when we return. Was that a suggestion? The most Cap could do without violating his orders? Even if it wasn't, it's given me an idea. So he goes several levels down, and then he's dressed as an ultimatum agent, and he goes into the cell. Major Will, the boss sent me to bust you out. Alone? The others are hiding. We cleared the way to the motor pool. Grab the Jeep and take off. I'll follow after I've freed our comrades. Meanwhile, you can have this to remember me by. And he hits him with a Spidey tracer. And it hits him on the back. So then Spidey goes after and follows the Spidey tracer. As Ware is on the Jeep taking off. He uses his unique spider sense to follow the self-sticking bug he planted to Toller Whale, gives chase through the winding DC streets, a pursuit that eventually leads to the National Archives. Now I know that ambassador tip was a ruse. The originals of the country's most important documents are stored here. The Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. If someone stole them and left evidence that Symkarian was responsible, that could be the last straw. The U.S. would declare war. Other countries would take sides. The results would be slaughter. Spider sense tingling. And he moves at the last second as the machine gun starts firing, Bob. Blam, 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 blam. And who is it?
Oh, come on. The Watchdogs?
Say what? You'll never escape the Watchdogs, wall crawler. The archive guards fell before us, and now you. But Spidey hits the couch behind them with webbing and pulls it forward. It nails them. Back off. And he hits the other one. Now, I like that crouch on this next panel, where he's got his right hand in front of his face and his left arm up. That's a cool pose.
It is. Yeah.
If I remember my high school civics, the important stuff is usually kept in vaults in the archive's basement. And since there may be more watchdogs between here and there, perhaps I'd best take the unscenic route. And he goes through and gets into the air vent. Several silently traversed air vents later. And that's a cool panel right there, too, with him looking through the grate in the shadows.
Yeah, the lighting from the shadows is really well done.
Yeah. Yeesh, Kmart must have had a blue light special on costumes. Ultimatum soldiers? Resistance? Goons from the sweatshop? Whoever's behind that must have been big connections. But everyone seems preoccupied with breaking into the vault, which should leave me time to make a few preparations. Now, Bob, these are all Captain America group villains.
They are. Yeah. It's weird.
Now, remind our listeners who the Watchdogs and Resistance and the Sweatshop are.
All right. Well, I mean, the Watchdogs are a far-right nationalist group, right? And we know that they went up against John Walker, of course, when he was Captain America and ultimately killed his mom and dad, right? And then they came back again. Mike Farrell's story arc involved the Watchdogs. And then, of course, the Resistance were a team of mutants that were Anti-Mutant Registration Act. And the Sweatshop were a bunch of dudes that got upgraded by the power broker and then had to work off, I guess, their debt by being thugs and whatever, and nefarious dudes. They could be rented out.
Well, this is very strange. These are all Mark Gruenwald era villain groups in the Captain America books.
Yeah.
Odd.
It is odd.
And after those unspecified chores had been set to, Spider-Man jumps down into the midst of them. Spider-Man! I haven't got all day, gents. Who's first? Will I do? Wall panel sliding back. Who? No! The Red Skull! It is the Red Skull, Bob.
And he is dressed to kill.
Now, we kind of knew he'd be in the issue because of the cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. He's standing there in a three-piece suit. Far cry from the house coat.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And he's again holding the long cigarette holder and smoke billowing up. You recognize me. How flattering not to be just another face in the crowd. Talk about connections. I mean, a private entrance to the National Archives? Something tells me I found our mastermind. I was expecting an attack after Major Whale returned from his rescue. But I'm a bit disappointed that your intruder is you rather than that pompous Captain America. Still, I can always use allies, if only to look the other way. Are you kidding? You want me to help you steal priceless documents? Steal them? Don't be mundane. I'm going to obliterate them. Oh my gosh, those lackeys weren't trying to break into the vault. They were wiring it to a bomb. Symkarian would be blamed, of course, just as America was blamed when I sent Sabretooth to assassinate the Prime Minister. The resulting war would be debilitating, making it so much easier for me to work from within to destroy the United States. My sources tell me you were snubbed by your own government. Wouldn't you prefer working for someone who wants you? Won't you join me for, say, $1 million? $1 million. And he opens up a briefcase, or as Bob likes to say, attaché case.
Indeed.
And everybody looks into it and they're all like aghast. $1 million? Mary Jane's out of work. There are school expenses, moving costs. Selling photos to the Daily Bugle is getting tough. And the way that Colonel looked at me, like something he'd scraped off his boot, I'd serve him right if I... who am I kidding? America's got problems, lots of them, but it's still my country, and no amount of money could change that. And he throws the money back into the case. Patriotism must exude its own hormone, one that promotes stupidity. And he walks away. Kill him. And just then, they start rushing him, but he jumps up into the air. Got to pull free. Go nab the skull. He's ducking back into that secret passage. If I can get to him before the wall panel slides shut. No, Will's throwing the switch, trying to set off the bomb. Can't get through this army of thugs in time to stop him, but maybe a spider tracer can. And he fires a spider tracer right where the lever would close, but it can't make contact because the spider tracer is blocking it. Did it stop the switch from making contact? Now, to help the rest of these costume zealots make contact with each other. And he's throwing them at, hitting everybody together. Blast, there's always one more. I don't have time for you. And he fires his webs. Now that, again, look at that detail on the gloves, on the webbing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And he goes after that door that closed behind the Red Skull, and he rips it off with his spider strength. And he goes into the secret passage, but there's a dozen passages. Nuts. Better call in the military. They have the manpower to do this right. But first, I'll retrieve my automatic camera, along with my little item I borrowed from the Pentagon evidence room. And sometime later, in the aforementioned Pentagon, the recording is being played. When I sent Sabretooth to assassinate the Prime Minister. This is astonishing. All of it. But what's most amazing is that these tunnels under the archives are all led back into one another. They went nowhere. Obviously, the Red Skull has a hidden escape exit. Even so, this photographic and audio evidence should be proof enough that America wasn't behind the assassination. It is. I've been on the phone to the acting Prime Minister in Symkaria. He's agreed to sponsor a resolution absolving the United States. I made a mistake, Spider-Man. You're a good American. I hope you'll accept my apology and your country's gratitude. Colonel, the pleasure was mine. Thank you for helping to see justice done, Spider-Man. A token of our appreciation in cash will be waiting in the Symkaria Embassy in New York. And then Cap comes up and puts his hand on his shoulder. You did a grand thing, son. I just wish I could have helped more. I hope you understand. I did what I had to do. So did I, Cap. When it comes down to it, I guess that's all any of us can do. And sometimes, this time, that's enough. And he swings away.
Do 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 do.
Bob Lucius. Bob Lucius. All right.
Wow.
3-part story. All right.
All right.
Yeah, that was fun. A little
was.
different. A little different.
Yeah. I have not read many Spider-Man stories in my life, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think before this, one.
Really?
I read the One More Day story.
Okay, interesting choice.
Yeah, but I've never really read Spider-Man. So
Now you want to go back and look at some of those Erik Larson, Mary Jane?
I do. I'm going to
issues.
be scanning those tonight at bedtime. So in the bathroom.
No. All right, Bob. Any thoughts before we get into to finish this up?
No, it was a good story. I think they utilized Cap well. They did.
Bob, what did they do?
They utilized.
No, Bob.
I'm sorry. They used Cap well. They
Okay,
integrated Cap well into the Spider-Man story, and they played him right. He had the right personality, the right character. They didn't portray him in a way that was different than what we would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think, that tension between, good guy Cap, right? He doesn't, and they use that against him. Right.
Yeah.
So they were able to juxtapose Silver Sable and Solo against, what Cap was willing to do and what he wasn't willing to do. And Spider-Man, is watching all this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we do in real life. We see what others do and we try to model those that we admire and respect.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I enjoyed that, and I thought, having the Red Skull being the master evil behind everything. I think some of the tip off could have been when we saw all those together at the end, right? The different villains from Captain America's book, because Red Skull had that, right? We saw that in issue 350. Which would have been maybe a year prior or something like that when this story came out. So I think that story kind of inspired maybe David Michelinie to do this 6-part story and have that. So that was cool. It was more than just Captain America appearing as far as like the tie-in to what was going on in the Captain America series at that time.
Right. Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen some sort of reaction of Captain America at the end when it was revealed that Red Skull was behind everything. I mean, like it wasn't. I'm not going to say he didn't have a reaction. I'm just going to say it wasn't captured in this comic book. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I'm sure he did. It's just that like it was left out. And
yeah, it's his big foe, right?
Right.
Right. It's his nemesis.
Yeah. He's still alive, right. It should have been a little bit.
What was he wearing?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So Bob, you go first. I went
Ooh.
first last time. You go first on favorite panel.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with issue 324. And I think it's like page 13. It's the first panel at the top of that page. And it's, it's when they've gone to the jungles of Mexico, right? And they're fighting with a bunch of these ne'er-do-wells. And there's a great panel that covers the entire top of the page, and it's Cap in the middle in a melee surrounded by the flying bodies of these individuals that he's dealing with. And I think it's a great mishmash of bodies with Cap in the middle, and you could tell it's smack dab in the middle of the fight. And he's got a great look of determination on his face, and I like this panel.
Nice, good choice. So a little Erik Larson action.
What about yourself?
Well, there's so many good things. I mean, like I pointed out so many times, and I would love to go ahead and pick out some of these really cool poses of Spider-Man that Todd McFarlane had done. But this isn't the Amazing Spider-Man fans podcast. It's the Captain America comic book fans podcast. So I'm going to have to go with a Captain America favorite panel. And I'm going to go back to the first issue we covered, 323, and I'm going to go with page 10, and that is the one where Cap is coming down, in the parachute, that they end up making, like I showed you the bumper sticker full. I think that's my favorite panel. It's just a really cool panel of him. It's him making a grand entrance into the story, and it's a pretty cool image.
It is. I wanted to save that one for you because I knew you liked it.
Oh,
so,
you're
that's
so
just
sweet.
it's the way I am.
That's how you roll.
It's the way I roll. So what about t-shirt worthy?
T-shirt worthy. I'm going to have to go with the cover to 323, which is, Cap standing there with Spidey climbing down the wall behind him, but Cap standing there with his shield up in the air. Listen, has there been better images of Cap? Of course, but I like this style, with Todd McFarlane's style, and I think slap that on a t-shirt and I totally would get that.
Excellent.
How about you?
Well, you did say it is the Captain America comic book podcast. Otherwise, I definitely would have gone with Mary Jane's rumpus. But that's the sort of thing that you only wear in private. So I'm going to go with issue 323, page 16, the first panel. And
which one?
It's page 16 of issue
which
323.
issue?
323.
323. Okay.
Yeah. And it's the one where Cap is throwing the shield directly at the reader. And he says, only a couple of dozen. I expected primary defenses to be a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like the depth of that panel. I like the way he's chucking that shield, and you see the motion of the shield as it's moving toward you. And I like the text balloon as well. I'd love to see that on a t-shirt. I'd wear that.
Okay. Yeah. Sign me up.
All right.
All right. So we're gonna get to time capsule, Bob. What do you got for time capsule?
All right, Rick. I'm going to go with the blood and the bodies because it's so 90s, right? I mean,
it's actually 1989, but
89, late 80s, early 90s. It's so much an exemplar of that era where the body counts and really the blood, and you don't see that as much anymore. And you certainly didn't see it before that. It really was an artifact of the times. And to me, it's just a bit gratuitous. Young kids, I don't know. I mean, I guess today young kids wouldn't be bothered by that at all. They've seen so much worse, but back then it seemed a little bit gratuitous, and in retrospect, it just seems unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay. I totally get that. And I know a couple of our listeners might feel the same way too. All right. So for me in the time capsule, I'm going to have to go with a mention of something that totally puts it in a time frame. And that was the whole Iran selling weapons to Iran that Silver Sable mentions.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
That was a huge deal.
And this was, not too, 1989 wasn't that long after that. The Iran-Contra affair. So, I think that kind of puts us in a time frame that is pretty obvious. So that's going in my time capsule.
Excellent. All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. All right. So, listeners, come back next episode. We're going to do 2 issues in Captain America. We're going to jump up a couple of years. We're going to 1991. So we did something in the 80s. Now we're going to do something in the 90s. Now, granted, there's only 2 years apart, but we saw the Watchdogs in this story, and it whetted the appetite. So we're going to go to Captain America 385 and 386. This is a Mark Gruenwald story, Ron Lim art. It is Cap versus the Watchdogs, but getting in the way is John Walker, U.S. agent. So we're looking forward to covering those 2 issues.
Yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun. I mean, it's always interesting to see John Walker and Steve Rogers in the same story, and juxtapose their 2 different approaches to solving problems. So.
Yes, indeed. That'll be fun. So come back next episode and we will cover that. All right, Bob, as always, it's been fun wrapping Cap with you.
It has. I can't wait till next week.
All right. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis, and you have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fan. Ironically, the CIA has provided information indicating an ultimatum stronghold on the Symkaria Latvarian. There you go.
That's it.
And slightly more than an hour later, along Symkaria's mountainous. I should probably read this stuff ahead of time, right? I did read it. I should just probably practice it. I don't know. And slightly more than an hour later, along Symkaria's mountainous northern edge.
It's just mountainous, but
Mountainous. Oh, damn it. Mountainous. Yes, that's a word I have actually heard. Mountainous. That's the most mountainous mountain I've ever seen.